Well, another very warm welcome back, all my YouTubers, and thanks once more for tuning in to Classic Dirt Bike TV. And today we've made the journey to North Carnduff Farm here in Strathaven, just outside Glasgow, to cover round one of the Scottish Classic Motorcycle Racing Club's event. Now, this will be the club's first ever race meeting in over 18 months, so it's a long overdue event. So we're all looking forward to some good racing here at North Carnduff Farm, with classes from pre-1968 to pre-1975. Also, we have twin shock or pre-1984 classes racing, and also today, for the very first time, we have two brand new classes for pre-1984 up to 250cc, and of course the brand new 1990 Evolution 125 class. So we're looking for some good racing here at the track today. Now, the weather, as you can see, is absolutely superb, and it's been a very dry week, so the track is in perfect condition for this event. Now, also coming up on my channel soon, we will be heading south to the Westmoreland Club's event at Kendal to cover the Golden Jubilee CCM race weekend, which will be a full 2 days of racing vintage machines, and of course as many CCM bikes as you can throw a stick at. So look out for all the action and the bikes from that event coming up in my channel quite soon. Okay, until then, let's do our usual walk around the paddock, and let's see what these guys have been doing with their vintage race bikes during the last 18 months. So without any further delay, let's take a look around the paddock. Okay, and the first pair of machines that we're going to take a look at this round one event here at Strathaven is Billy Pentland's nice collection of YZ490 Yamahas. Now, these pair of Yamahas belonging to Billy, one of them has been a twin shock conversion. As you can see, that bike on the left there, Billy converted this particular bike to a twin shock configuration, and I know many of you will be saying why, but and then Billy's answer to that would be, of course, why not? And as you well know, these YZ490 two-stroke motors had more than enough grunt for your average motocross racer to handle, and if you could get these things fully open throttle wise and into top gear, then you are a very brave man indeed, because these are super fast machines on the racetrack. Now, Billy did this twin shock conversion on this YZ490 a few years back, and since then he's used this bike regularly at classic and twin shock race meetings, and he seems to like it, and it's quite a comparison jumping from this twin shock YZ490 to his normal monoshock bike. Now, this was Billy's first ever attempt at this kind of engineering, changing a monoshock bike to a twin shock configuration, but appears to have done quite a good job in it, because Billy does quite well on this bike when he races it in the pre-1984 class. And even although the bike is a twin shock conversion to this YZ490, it's still a very quick machine. Now, this is Billy's other YZ490, a more original looking machine, but again a very quick bike on the track. And these YZ490s are not everybody's cup of tea when it comes to a race bike, because these can be quite fiery when they're opened up, but nevertheless a good open class rider can handle one of these 490s pretty well. But this particular bike here is quite an original looking machine. Doesn't look like it's got many non-original parts in it, apart from, of course, maybe the DG exhaust expansion chamber, but you have to expect that on a bike of this age. And as you can see, the standard monoshock linkage Yamaha suspension on the rear, but a nice pair of YZs, and you can see Billy riding these bikes in the coming races here on my Classic Dirt Bike TV channel. Now, of course, you can't have a Paddock walkabout video without featuring one of possibly the best motocross machines ever built, and this is Jim Colligan's 490 Myco from 1981. A lovely example of one of these iconic machines. Jim's bike, of course, is not fully original, but there's so many different parts that you can buy for these 490s these days. It's quite unusual and quite rare to see an original bike from 1981. Now, this 490 Mega 2 is Jim's number one race bike, but Jim also has once again a YZ490 Yamaha that he races from time to time, and that bike belonged to the late Ian Robertson, so Jim gives Ian's old YZ490 a run out from time to time, but he certainly prefers riding this lovely 490 Myco, and as you can see, a nice alloy airbox being fitted in place of the original plastic item, and a nice pair of YSS piggyback rear shocks. It looks like Jim's also fitted one of those sticky Myco seats to stop you sliding up and down on the seat, and naturally this is a piston port engine powered of course by that big Bing carburetor. Now, a nice view here from the driver's seat of the road ahead, and once these things get opened up, you better make sure that you're hanging on. But a nice example of one of these 1981 490 Mega 2s, and that particular bike there belongs to Jim Colligan. Now, this is a bike you may recognise from my YouTube channel from a few years ago. This is Dougie Harrow's GBR 500 Honda. Now, Dougie bought this bike from Rod Spry a few years ago, and believe it or not, since then Dougie's never even had a chance to try the bike out, purely because of the pandemic and everything else that's been happening. So this round one event here at Strathaven was the first time ever that Dougie's managed to throw his leg over this bike and take it to a racetrack. So he was certainly looking forward to the bike's debut here at North Carnduff Farm. Now, these JBRs, of course, powered by the big 500cc XR Honda power plant. Now, these engines undergo a bit of tuning with some hot cams and some porting to that twin port cylinder head, and but these are very quick bikes on the track, and I'm sure that Dougie was absolutely champing at the bit, waiting to try his brand new bike on a racetrack for the very first time. But again, a lovely looking 4-stroke machine, and Dougie will be racing this particular bike in the pre-1984 class, which is one of the bigger classes here at the Scottish Classic Motorcycle Racing Club. Okay, next up we're going to look at a nice looking British machine, and this is Ian Ward's Faber B44 BSA. Now, this is a brand new bike almost for Ian, because he purchased this bike from another club member called Ian Munro. So Ian Ward has now added this to his lovely Villiers machine that he races. So once again Ian was looking forward to racing this bike at this round 1 event here at Strathaven. The frame is of course one of those very high quality built Faber frames with this B44 BSA motor, and this bike also has magnesium rear back plates, which again are quite rare for these old BSA machines. It looks like a modern Japanese Mikuni carburetor fitted to this BSA motor, which is quite a common swap for the older amyl concentric or monoblock carburetors, but this nice alloy BSA tank, of course, with the oil for the engine housed in the frame, and a nice pair of NJB rear suspension shocks. Now these old BSAs with their alloy side panels and alloy airboxes are usually typical of the kind of bikes that you'll see in the pre-1968 class. A good old down-to-earth British made machine. So that's Ian Ward's B44 BSA. Okay, our next featured machine is this quite nice looking Cluse stroker belonging to Ian Stainton. Now this is not an original bike from the early 1970s. These particular Cluse strokers are reproduction bikes built by Joe Maxwell Engineering, who builds the frames and many of the other parts that go into making this reproduction bike. And there we have the Joe Maxwell Engineering stamp on the rear of the seat, but nevertheless a very nice looking machine. Of course, these Cluse strokers were the first ever machines that Alan Cluse built, and that was before he even registered the name Cluse Competition Machines. So many people seem to think that Alan Cluse began building CCM bikes almost straight away when he formed the company, but that's not correct, as these Cluse strokers were the very first machines that Alan built before he became CCM. Now once again, these Cluse strokers powered by the old BSA B50 power plant. Alan Cluse took this B50 engine, which was basically a road-going engine, and did all his tuning and worked his magic on these engines to make them into these fantastic 4-stroke British-made motocrossers. Now, although this is a reproduction machine, it still has proper CCM rear brake hubs, which are quite rare for a reproduction bike, when many of these repo bikes can use either Micro hubs, or I've even seen them using CZ rear hubs, but the hubs on Ian's bike here are authentic CCM parts. Of course, back in the day, Alan Cluse never built many of these Cluse strokers, but it's nice to see that somebody's doing reproduction bikes now. Now Ian's bike's fitted with these REH front fork suspension systems, but a very nice looking bike nonetheless, even although this is a remanufactured bike, and certainly very quick on the racetrack, as you'll find out if you tune in to the racing from this event in my next up and coming video postings. Okay, moving right along, we're now going to take a look at John Porteous's 1982 Curtis Honda. Now, an awesome looking piece of kit if you like your twin shock 4-stroke machines, and this particular bike of John's told me that this was one of the early Curtis frames that was built for these big Hondas, once again powered by those big XR 500 Honda 4-stroke motors. Now, as you can see, these big Curtis Hondas, quite tall at the front and at the rear, so if you're short of leg, then you may find yourself struggling to put your leg over this machine. Now, a nice pair of Öhlins piggyback rear shocks, top quality suspension units fitted to this Curtis Honda, and a nice pair of aluminium side panels, and quite an awesome looking piece of kit, this big Honda. Now, drum brakes for 1982, but nonetheless these were still pretty good brakes on these Curtis Hondas to slow that big 4-stroke motor. Now, a nice megaphone made by Harrison Performance, and there's a lovely sound comes from that exhaust pipe when that big XR 500 motor gets fired up. Now, the bike's seat and the bike's fuel tank are from a Husqvarna bike, and once again this twin port Honda XR 500 motor, a very good power plant for these big Curtis Hondas, and this is the business end of the bike, and the front forks are also from a Suzuki. But we may take a closer look at this lovely Curtis Honda in a future video here on my Classic Dirt Bike TV channel. Now, our next collection of bikes are from the Bell family. Now, we have the father Mike and the two sons of Liston and Lewis, who all race at these Scottish classic events, and as you can see, the Bell boys are never short of a bike or two when they come to these events. They're well covered in that department, and this number 9 bike I think belongs to Lewis. This is his Tribsa with the Triumph twin engine inside, of course, the BSA frame. Now, this number 89 bike, I think this is Father Mike's preferred machine, a lovely BSA Gold Star. It looks like Mike's been doing some paint work on the fuel tank during lockdown, but a lovely looking old British machine, and this is Mike's race bike when he takes to the track. Number 98, this will be Liston's racing machine, and this is a big 500cc Jawa machine inside the what looks like a Rickman frame, but again an awesome piece of kit when this thing gets fired up. It's more like a speedway bike when you see Liston throwing this thing around on the track. But again, a superb collection of old classics belonging to the Bell family. Now, next up, this is a 1983 125 Honda Evolution bike, and this belongs to Derek Macaulay. Now, this is quite a recent purchase by Derek, who normally rides a 250 Bull Taco Pursang, but Derek's purchased this bike to race in this brand new pre-1990 Evolution 125 class. But back in the day, these were pretty awesome little bikes, these CR125 water-cooled Hondas, and it's certainly a bike that you very seldom see on racetracks these days, and I must admit this was quite a rare thing for me to see one getting ready to take part in a race event here at Strathaven. Now, although Derek told me that this was a 1983 bike, I thought back in the day that these 83 125s had the clutch and water pump on the right hand side of the engine, where of course this particular motor has the ignition on the right hand side, but who knows, what do I know? Derek could be right, and of course I will more than likely be wrong once again. But a nice looking little two-stroke motor with that liquid cooling. But for me personally, quite a rare little CR125 from 1983, and quite an unusual little bike, but hopefully Derek will get on well with his new purchase when he begins racing this bike in the pre-1990 Evolution 125 class. So that's Derek McCauley's 1983 125 Honda. Okay, next up we're going to take a look at Darryl Wiley's 250 Yamaha. Now, of course, this is not an original bike because it has CZ front forks and hub on the front, and of course the fuel tank is a Clark item, so not a thoroughbred Yamaha fuel tank, but nonetheless quite a nice looking machine. I think the engine is based around one of the older DT Yamaha machines, a little two-stroke machine, and in fact this bike was advertised for sale on the day, and I don't know if Darryl did get any interested parties to buy this bike, but he did say that it had one of these champion frames, which were quite rare, but still quite a nice looking little two-stroke racer. And I don't know if Darryl did actually sell the bike on the day, but certainly be a nice bike for somebody to start classic or twin shock racing. But these featured bikes in this Paddock video of course are just a sample of the many bikes that I filmed on the day, so we may feature more of these machines from this round one event at a later stage on my classic dirt bike TV channel. But a nice looking Yamaha two-stroke, and that bike belongs to Darryl Wiley. Okay, we're going to finish our walk around the paddock at this round one event here at Strathaven with a look at Andy Mallock's 250 Montesa Capra. Now once again, this is just one of two Spanish Montesas that Andy owns. This was quite a recent purchase for Andy, not so long ago, this 250, and he also owns a quite nice looking and original 414 Montesa Capra. But Andy tends to jump between his Montesas and his big 4-stroke Armstrong 500 machines, and he has quite a decent collection of old classics in his compendium of old motorcycles. But this 250 Montesa Capra looks quite original, and it appears to have the original Montesa exhaust tailpipe. It's still fitted. But again, as I said, this is just one of the many bikes that you can see in action racing on the track at this round one event here at Strathaven. So I do hope you make sure that you subscribe to my channel in order that you don't miss out on any of the racing from this Carnduff Farm event. So I do hope you've enjoyed this quick look around the paddock, and that very nice bike there is Andy Mallock's 250 Montesa Capra VB. Well, I hope you enjoyed taking a look at some of those very nice bikes from the paddock of the Scottish Classic Motorcycle Racing Club's round one event here at Strathaven. Now don't forget, you can see all the racing action from this event coming up on my YouTube Classic Dirt Bike channel very soon, so make sure that you subscribe to my channel in order that you don't miss out on some of the fantastic racing that took place at this Strathaven race event. So until the next time, of course, everybody stay safe and well, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button until we all get together once again to speak about more vintage racing right here on your favourite Classic Dirt Bike TV channel.